Bitcoin, all digital currency, it is a construct of the American military, of the Pentagon. Okay, so go back to 2008, Bitcoin is introduced. And it's introduced on like this random like email and by a man I can't remember the name of. Okay, but like no one knows who this guy is. He says, oh, you know what? I've created this, blockchain and it's all open and transparent, and maybe you guys can use it. Okay, and slowly became more popular. But no one's asking the hard questions. Okay, the hard questions are who spent the resources and the time to build a blockchain? Who is financing the servers? Who has expertise in technology? Well, if you just do some basic research, you will know it's usually DARPA, okay, the research arm of the Pentagon. They're the ones who came up with GPS. They're the ones who came up with the internet. Okay, they're always coming up with this new technology. Then the question then is, okay, why would the Pentagon want to give the Bitcoin out for free? And the answer is the same reason why they give the internet out for free, because the internet is the ultimate surveillance tool. Whatever you run on the internet is complete, it's captured, it's stored, and all this data is being analyzed to create a profile on you. You are freely giving up all your privacy to the US government, to the Pentagon, and you think it's free. And that's why it was important, really important for Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, these guys become the face of the internet because you trust these guys, right? In the 1970s, the Pentagon says, listen, hey, we've created something called the internet. It's all free. Do you guys want to go use it? Everyone would be like, screw you. You are the Pentagon. You're responsible for the Vietnam War. You're evil. I'm never going to touch this thing, okay? That's why Steve Jobs, Bill Gates were important. Without them, the internet could not have been popular as it is today. Same thing with Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin is designed as the ultimate surveillance technology. Who's going to use Bitcoin? Drug dealers, terrorist groups. And who's financing these terrorists and drug dealers? The CIA, okay? So the Bitcoin becomes a mechanism for the CIA to finance all its illicit activities around the world, sponsoring, terrorism, sponsoring drug dealing, sponsoring all these coup d'etats around the world. Let me give you another example. Google this. So the Winklevoss twins, they had this huge dispute with Mark Zuckerberg about who founded Facebook. Okay, they were classmates at Harvard, and the Winklevoss twins, their father's a hedge fund manager. They hired Mark Zuckerberg to write the code for Facebook, what would become Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg sold the idea and created Facebook. And the Winklevoss twins sued Mark Zuckerberg, and I think they got like $100 million settlement, which is nothing. Okay, Facebook is worth tens of billions of dollars today. $100 million is worth not that much. Do you know what they did? They spent every single cent of that settlement on Bitcoin, and now they're billionaires. Who the hell does that? Who the hell spends every single cent on something, on an investment? Well, they would if they knew exactly what Bitcoin was, what it was designed to do, and who owns Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin is the biggest scam out there. It's run by the Pentagon. You don't have to trust me. Just do some basic research, okay? All right? And ask yourself, hey, who funded this thing? Who has the expertise, the technology to fund this thing? Who is financing the hardware to run Bitcoin? Who benefits from Bitcoin? Why would they want Bitcoin around? Right? And the answer is the CIA and the Pentagon. And that's the only answer. So all that I do is engage in intellectual speculation. Okay? I'm trying to create predictive models that allow us to foretell events. Right? So I'm perfectly open to the possibility that this is all nonsense. But what I'm saying is, fine, if this is nonsense, let's just figure out what this nonsense leads us to. Okay? So if you just assume that the world is run by this cabal of secret societies that want to fulfill political prophecy, well, what do they want to do? Well, they want to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque in order to build a third temple. That's fundamental to their fulfillment of biblical prophecy. They want Israel to anger the whole world and force the whole world to attack Israel because that's part of the prophecy. They want anti-Semitism to surge all around the world. They want Jews to be hated, despised, spat on in the streets of Paris, the streets of New York, Toronto, to force them to go back to Jerusalem and build the Pax Judaica, the great empire of the Jews, the Davidic kingdom. They want the war of Gog and Magog for the Islamic world to attack Israel and usher in Armageddon, right? So now the question then is, are these things happening? If you look at the news, okay, they are happening, all right? They are happening. Like so I'm not sure if you know about the red heifers, but Israel imported 5 red heifers from Texas, and these five red heifers, they were genetically modified to be perfect. The Bible requires them to be perfect. And now, they're in Israel, they're in Jerusalem. And why they're important is that biblical prophecy requires them to be sacrificed in order to consecrate the land in order to build the third temple. So the only reason why you would go to all this trouble, spending years and millions of dollars to breed these red heifers and then transport them to Israel is because you want to build the third temple. The problem with building a third temple, of course, is that the Temple Mount is where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is. So you need to first destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque to build a third temple. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in the Islamic world, which would, and if they were to do that, then every Muslim in the world would be compelled to seek vengeance against the nation of Israel. And if you are just a geopolitical strategist, if you're just like a politician in Israel, why would you want to submit your people to such tribulation? Why do you want like 1 billion Muslims all around the world united against you? So that to me is like really weird. And then you go back and you look at things like the JFK assassination, 9/11, the recent Charlie Kirk assassination. If you look at them very closely, there are all these occult elements to all these assassinations, as though they were almost like ritual sacrifices. So an example is JFK. JFK was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. That's 11/22. Guess what? 11/22/33 are the 3 sacred numbers of the Masonic Order. JFK was assassinated near Delaney Plaza, which was formerly the site of the first Freemason temple in Texas. Then you go to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Number 33 appears all over the place. It took 33 hours for the FBI to track down Tyler Robinson. When Charlie Kirk was sitting, he sat beside a table with 3 hats, white hats with number 47 on all 3 hats. Okay, and 47, of course, is Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. But look, 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 times 3 is 33. Okay, and also September 10th is the 33rd week after Trump's inauguration. September 10th is 34 days before Charlie Kirk's 32nd birthday. And some people said that Jesus died when he was 32 or 33. And in many ways, Charlie Kirk is being presented as this Messiah figure. So if all this is conspiracy bunk, then why are there these coincidences? They could be coincidences, but I mean the likelihood is very, very low. So I raise these questions, okay? And so all I'm saying is this is all intellectual speculation. Let's see what happens next year or 2 years. If they do destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, if they do declare war against Iran, if they do build a third temple, then this is going to force us to ask ourselves, why is this happening? And then the solution I propose is it's because of a religious eschatology. It's because of this cabal secret societies. And that to me is the only explanation for why this could happen. So I understand that for a lot of people, this is conspiracy theory. For me, it's intellectual speculation. I'm trying to figure out how the world works. So I'm trying to create this prediction model. If this prediction model works out, if my predictions work out, then I would argue that it's because my analytical model is true. And it is true that this world is being run by this cabal of secret societies. One thing that people don't understand is that it's humans who drive history. But not only that, it's certain humans who drive history. So I think in school, we believe that in school we're taught that it's logic that drives policymaking. So, policymakers, they come together in a room and they debate, they argue, and then they come up with the most logical, the most rational, the most economic decision, and then implement it in policy. And that's what we're trained to believe. And given the reality that we live in today, given the wealth inequality, given the fact that you have these destructive immigration policies, given the fact that you have all these wars overseas. Clearly, decision making is not driven by a rational perspective. And so, what I'm trying to figure out is how power is manifested, how it expresses itself, and who has real power in this world. And so, I've been focusing a lot on the power of religion, on how certain religious groups, through certain religious rituals, they're able to develop a very coherent framework for the understanding of the world. And this framework is almost like a script for them to implement. And they do that subconsciously in different corridors of power. And because they're able to secretly coordinate, they're able to wield tremendous power in the world. And so it's my theory that it is certain religious secret societies that have real power in the world. And so I'm slowly trying to untangle who holds real power in the world. And looking forward, what I will say is that it's really ideas that have true power. And we can metaphorically express these ideas, right? And people have metaphorically expressed these ideas. I mean, some people use the term Satan to describe these ideas. David Icke would use the term, interdimensional lizard people. The 13 families. So there are different names for these ideas, but I think the main idea that creates the reality we live in is that matter is fundamental. It's matter that is the end all and be all. And this is counterintuitive, or this has not been consistent with how humans have traditionally understood themselves and their world. For most of human history, if you look at all these ancient traditions, whether it's a Native American tradition, whether it's the Hindu tradition, whether it's a Buddhist tradition, whether, like all these different traditions, they all say that it's consciousness that creates reality. And as a result, there's like a divine spark in us. It's almost as though God manifests itself through our imagination. And as such, we have agency and control over the reality we live in. And for most of human history, this is true. We lived in pretty egalitarian, free um, societies without a sense of property, without a hierarchy, without war. But as human societies continue to develop, we had wars, which creates hierarchy, which creates the idea of private property. And now the elite have been interested in transforming the way we perceive the world. And now they're going to use new ideas that really didn't exist before in order to essentially enslave us, because if we're able to remember that the divine spark in us, if we're able to remember like the world we live in is only transitory and our soul is eternal, so who cares what happens in our world, then it's hard for the elite to justify the hierarchy. It's hard for the elite to justify private property. So they need to brainwash us to believe that matter is the end all and be all. When we die, there's nothing. So be afraid, obey us, and maybe you'll live a good life. And that very much explains the world we live in today. So that's how I perceive power. Power is really about trying to change our perceptions of the world and trying to make us believe that we are powerless, that we're only a collection of, matter, of atoms, of synapses. And once we dissipate, then we're gone. And it's this fear of death that allows the elite to control our behavior. There are other control mechanisms as well, but I would say that's the main strand that explains the development of human history. And who these elites are, of course, change over time. But really, I mean, they're all worshiping this one power, and you can call this power Satan. You can call this power, interdimensional lizard people. You can call these people. You can call this power Zeus. Whatever name you have for it, different elites will have different names. But it's the same concept. Whichever elites are the most loyal to this concept will find themselves in power. The families or the secret societies, the religions that are most dedicated to creating a material world and who are the most diabolical, the most nefarious in trying to create a material world will triumph in the end. And so another way of saying this is that, maybe NASA shooting up rockets up into space. It's not really about space exploration. Maybe it's trying to create a framework of the universe that defies our intuitive understanding of the universe. We previously understood the universe as conscious and as spiritual, but NASA shooting up rockets into space, having people land on the moon, having people walk on the moon, demonstrates to us that the material is not conscious, it's material. And as such, we as humans, through our science technology, can manipulate this material world, and thus you have the atomic bomb. So another way of saying this is the 20th century, the atomic bomb, the space landing, NASA, including 9/11, including these wars. It's all to create a perception of reality that only the material world exists. And that is the true God. Materialism is the true God. And as such, you must pursue money. You must pursue materialism. And that's what's led to, I would say, tremendous unhappiness. Like mental depression is on an all-time high. It leads to tremendous inequality, tremendous suffering. So I would say that's the world where we're living in today. So if we just go with a framework that human history, it's really about this war between matter and mind, between God and Satan. We have to ask ourselves, what is it that people who believe in Satan, what is it they want to do? Well, the ultimate objective is inversion, to invert the world, right? Because in the existing model of the universe, there are different dimensions, and the higher frequencies are the high dimensions, and the lower frequencies are the low dimension, right? So spirit is up there, matter is down here. And if they really want to control the world, they need to invert this order, making matter the dominant force and spirituality like a lower force. So you invert the world. You make God Lucifer, God. And so that's the ultimate objective. And I'm not saying this is a conscious thing. I'm saying this is a subconscious thing. And I'm not saying that these interdimensional lizard people exist. All I'm saying is let's assume that they exist. What is it that they really want to do? And so my argument is that they're really interested in the idea of inversion. So then the question then is, how do you create inversion? Well, the previous model was to create a dialectic. Okay, so it's pretty well known that communism was a creation, in many ways, of the Anglo-American Empire, right? So Karl Marx wrote his books in the British Museum in London, supported by the British. The Bolsheviks were funded by Wall Street and the City of London. So Trotsky, Lenin, these were all figures that spent a lot of time in the Anglo-American Empire, and certainly the intelligence apparatus knew that they existed. In many ways, they cultivated them and supported them. Okay, so what? Then the question is, well, why would capitalists want to create communism? And the answer is because a dialectic changes the way you perceive the world. Before, people ask the question, do we need property? Is property sanctioned by God? And now with the dialectic between capitalism and communism, the debate is, should property be private or public? Okay, and that's what your mind thinks all the time. But what this dialectic has done is it's forced you to believe that property is intrinsically valuable when it's not, when it's just a made-up concept. Okay, so now we move towards the internet, and what the powers that be want to do is wed ourselves to this world. Because as long as we believe this world has power, as long as we believe this world has value, then it has power and value. Reality, it's all just perception, okay? Reality, it's a mass hallucination. So their objective is to control the way we perceive the world. And that's why, they sent a man up to the moon, even though, you could argue they didn't really succeed. They really didn't get past the Van Allen belts, okay? I'm not going to go into that, but you can make the argument, like NASA, it was just a big spectacle to make us believe that matter is the end all and be all. And also, artificial intelligence is the same concept. Okay, so the very idea of transhumanism is part of this project of inversion, where we sink even lower, okay? Where it's like transhumanism is trying to channel these demonic forces and trying to trap us in our world forever. So the idea of transhumanism and immortality, it's a demonic concept because if you think about it, if you look at these ancient religious traditions, death is a release. Like on this earth, you feel pain, you feel trauma, and then you start embracing these demonic forces. Well, death allows your soul to escape this world and then reflect on what's happened, understand that these are demonic forces, and to choose more of a divine life. Okay? So death is really important for our own education. But if you don't die, okay, or your soul can't leave, then the demonic force becomes the one and all and be all. And this is important. Why? Because the reason why you need to corrupt human beings, the reason why transhumanism is important is if the divine spark is within us, if you corrupt the divine spark in us, then you corrupt the divine, you corrupt divinity itself. You corrupt every divine force in the universe. So this is going to be shocking. But the war of good and evil, it's not out there between these nation states. The war of good and evil is inside your heart every single day. And transhumanism, artificial intelligence, all this is to make you slide further into the material world and embrace these demonic forces. So I think what's really important to understand is that there's a fundamental weakness to power. Why is it that power cannot sustain itself over the centuries? These empires rise, but they also fall. And so the problem with power is that it is unimaginative. It lacks the capacity for self-reflection. It lacks the capacity for innovation. So all that we're seeing is the further bureaucratization of society, okay? Because that's how they maintain control, by bureaucratizing society. So even though it sounds scary, all that we're seeing, okay, the Great Reset, it's just a logical extension or logical combination of all these trends that have been in society for the past few decades, mainly the over-bureaucratization of society. So I think eventually they'll start to want to implant microchips in us, and that'll be the mark of the beast. But again, and I say this, the problem with power is that it lacks imagination. It does not appreciate how spontaneous, how imaginative people are, and how people will rebel against these trends, against these policies, so that eventually these policies will blow up in the face of the elite. A couple examples are immigration. So I know like people believe that immigration is the white replacement theory or whatever, but just from a bureaucratic perspective, immigration makes sense because you're bringing young people to replenish a aging society. Okay, so it was a bureaucratic solution, and now what has happened is it's blown up in the face of the elite in that you have this massive discontent in these societies, and they're much more ungovernable than before. Another example would be digital currency, where digital currency will be implemented in order to cover up the financial corruption or the financial bankruptcy in these societies. But again, I think it's going to blow up in their face. So you can say it's intentional, but I would say it's just that power lacks imagination. And the great power that we as individuals have is the capacity to imagine a new future for ourselves. So yeah, I do understand like they have all these plans, and it does seem as though plans are going like it seems as though these plans are being pushed in the UK with digital ID. Eventually in Canada they'll have microchips and digital currency. I think digital currency will first appear in Canada at scale because of Mark Carney. But I think these things are blow up in their face, and I think like the world that we're heading towards will be one of anarchy, one of chaos, but it'll be one of regeneration as well.